Hello, young voters. Welcome back to another video. Today, me, Ryan, and Rishab and Vikaas are just going to have a little bit of discussion on hate speech and free speech and stuff like that. So I'm going to be sort of posing questions and not really contributing as much, but they're going to be the main discussion people. So first, I want to start off with, just in case you're not familiar, reading off what the paradox of tolerance is, which is basically, the crux of this whole debate, is the paradox of tolerance states that if society is tolerant without limit, its ability to be tolerant will eventually be seized and destroyed by people who are intolerant. The idea was sort of discovered by Karl Popper, and he described it as seemingly paradoxical in the idea that in order to maintain a tolerant society must be intolerant of people who are intolerant. So basically what that means is, to give an example, would be that we can't tolerate Nazism because Nazism is not tolerant of an ideology. So therefore, if we tolerate Nazism, eventually they'll take power using the tolerance that we gave them to make this whole society intolerant. So it's better to be intolerant of intolerant ideologies in order to preserve tolerance. I said tolerance a lot of times there, so I'm just gonna let the sort of discussion start on whether, so, all of us agree that we don't like hate speech. So
Right?
right?
Oh yeah, Ryan, nice. Nice,
Yeah,
classic.
so most of us agree that we don't like hate speech. And so we're sort of operating off that principle. So what I first want to get into is, everybody agrees we shouldn't have hate speech in society ideally. So do like large social media companies have a responsibility really to society to try and make an effort to ban types of hate speech, like on Twitter? Should Twitter have a mandate and a moral obligation really to ban hate speech?
Nico, we are assuming, correct, that Twitter does in fact have the right to do that in the first place, right? Because they're
There's legal precedent for all of this. If it's a private company, then First Amendment does not apply, and we'll get into legality after this portion.
Yeah, platforms have control over what they allow on it.
Yeah. With that being said, I mean, I think to some extent they do, because it's like the words that get said, are like the hate speech that gets like allowed on their sites affects a lot of different people and a lot, like, in differing ways. Like, for example, there might be something anti-Semitic posted online, something horribly anti-Semitic, and I might see that and think, well, that guy's an asshole, like, screw him, but it won't, like, deeply affect my core because, well, I'm not Jewish. But someone who is, and like devoutly so, might see that, and it'll affect them a hell of a lot more than it would affect me. And it's just that fact that, like, you don't know who's going to read your tweets. And let's be real, the people who are posting that kind of hate speech do know the kind of people who see those tweets, and that's why they tweet what they tweet. But Twitter, they know more than anyone else that anyone can see what you type. And with that being said, I think they have to understand that what gets allowed online affects a lot of different people, like I said. And so in that regard, they do have an obligation to kind of protect those people.
So obviously I agree with like most of what you said. I think Twitter should mark anything that's hate speech, and like they should obviously take into consideration the context of it. And I believe that Twitter should like get a few qualified content moderators who'll be able to like flag a few comments as hate speech. By flag, I don't mean take it down, but like put warnings, like saying, like, like how just fact check warnings on Instagram or other platforms like Facebook, right? I'd say maybe like put like a warning saying hate speech. Then like after, like, some people can know that this isn't like a good thing. And then after you click on it, you can see what the person said. That's what
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Because it doesn't completely block the content, but it also allows you to like understand what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah. Maybe there should also be like other resources, like I guess de-radicalization websites.
Yeah, like if you were, or like a person you care about is, espousing these kind of beliefs, direct them to such and such and such.
I think one idea is maybe on a platform, if you're about to access like a hate speech post, you should be forced to type I do not like hate speech or something like that
That would just be
before
that
you
would be a
view the
barrier.
post.
Someone to make a
It would-
bot with it, like
it
for
would,
that
yeah.
update within like 2 seconds, and then no one would care.
Probably, but the average user would be annoyed.
Yes.
I don't know. That's just an idea, but in all seriousness, like hate speech just shouldn't be allowed on those platforms. And
Even with the
I think it's
warnings, like,
probably
even with what
Yeah.
Vikaas said. I mean, I like Vikaas's approach, quite honestly, because it allows those people to be idiots online and receive the. Because here's the thing, right? If those
Yeah.
people don't post anything at all, they can't receive the like absolute flood of like hate and criticism that other people usually give. And so, you know, they might be they're isolating themselves even more in a bubble, in that they think, okay, well, I can't post, but they're gonna forget that there's other people out there who, like the vast majority of people out there, who don't agree with them, because they'll be only on sites that allow them to post what they want to post without criticism.
yeah,
But
So,
exactly.
you know what
I
I'm
mean,
saying?
if you
think
completely
if
ban them from
the problem is really there is that if you have that flagging, right, wouldn't it just be better if they weren't there on the platform at all? Because then they can't recruit new people to them. If they were just banned entirely, then it would be much harder.
Yeah.
They'll
They'll
listen,
always find
if
another way.
you listen, if you ban them from the platform, while I do sympathize with that, I think
Like, they'll
it's not a
talk
great
off the platform, right? Like they'll still talk to people in person, say espousing these ideas. Like if you keep them online and I guess fact check their posts, then they could like you could just like, defeat their ideas using that, right? Because if not, like they'll just create Parlor and like all the people in echo chambers.
Yeah, they're just gonna make their own platform if you try to kick them off that, because likelihood is there's probably gonna be a fair amount of people moving off it.
Okay, so that actually segues nicely into my next question: is do you guys think that if the users leave Twitter, or if there's a site that says no, we're not actually gonna do content moderation, we're not gonna try and limit hate speech, so come if you want, we're absolutely anything goes, like Parler marketed itself, do you think that web hosting companies like Amazon have a responsibility to shut down sites that don't care about limiting hate speech, which in essence that means that there's going to be hate speech on that site? Because whenever you try and say that, you know, this is entirely free speech, it's just going to get full of Nazis. So do you guys think that company has a responsibility to shut down sites that they are helping to run that are just full of like Nazis?
I mean, that kind of edges on the line of net neutrality, doesn't it? Because the idea is that, I mean, yeah, it was originally meant to apply to ISPs, like internet service providers, but you could argue that Amazon Web Services and Google and all that stuff that kind of like run the internet, if you will, they also can kind of be considered the people that net neutrality applies to. And in that regard, you know, obviously we're all, you know, supporters of net neutrality, which dictates that you can't treat data different than other data. So like you can't treat 8chan different than Pinterest. Yeah, 8chan might have like way more terrifying people on it. But the website itself, I'm not talking about the people or what they're posting, but the website itself can't be treated as different by like Amazon and Google. And it's tricky, right? Because I want to say it's really easy to say, oh yeah, you know, Parler can go to hell and can get shut down for all I care. But the thing is, it's about the precedent you set. That's why all these choices are so. That's why so many people have so many issues with passing hate speech legislation and dealing anything with hate speech, because of the power it sets and the precedent it gives. And in that regard, I don't think it'd be a good idea to force Amazon to do all these things, because then they have that justification. They can say, oh, we shut down Parler because you guys wanted us to, but we've identified this threat, which is really like, let's say it's a social media company that's pro-unionization, right? It's posting a lot of pro-union stuff and against Amazon. Amazon can look at that and say, oh, well, I mean, I think I thought I saw a couple of riot, you know, postings on there. I thought I saw a couple of threats to our to our national security. And I'll just shut it down because you said, okay, well, you wanted us to shut down Parler because you thought it was a national threat. We're doing the same thing of our own accord. What's the issue? And you'll give them that power. That's the thing.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. It's the kind of thing like where if you ban like some far right book on like, if Amazon bans some far right book, like, you know, Mein Kampf, then they might go back and think, well, maybe we should also do this to the other extreme and ban the Communist Manifesto. And then you ban some like, and it could just go into a spiral. Like if you ban some, like say homophobic book on the right, they'll ban like some
Yeah.
pro trans book on the left, and it could just spiral into kind of thing of censorship.
Before you know it,
So I
you're
mean, you
not gonna be able to
definitely.
read Big Nate,
Oh my god, that'd be horrible.
right?
Or
Dude.
Yeah.
even they could
Yeah.
even ban classic books like Dr. Seuss. Imagine that.
Oh my gosh, imagine. There's nothing wrong with those books.
Nothing
Definitely
at all.
not.
Nothing that needs aging or updating.
It's definitely into
Yeah.
like, modern day sensibilities.
Yeah, right. He was truly a visionary.
Cheated on his dying wife. What a visionary Dr. Seuss.
Did he
was.
really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, his wife was dying of cancer and he was still cheating on her.
No, but Dr. Phil lad,
All right. But
Head
yeah, I
guys.
mean, listen, if you ban a far right source on the internet, they might also they could also go for like pro union stuff or the far left, and like
and
ultimately they'll generally ban a lot of things that dissent against them. So you don't want to go too far, but also like you definitely don't want to like facilitate far right views, because then it spirals into them becoming prominent. So I think it's more important to
find a medium.
just like here, let me speak. It's more important to straight up like kind of discourage it and show that it's not welcome, but you can't entirely flush it out, or else Amazon's gonna be like too free to shut other things down. And that goes for like Google as well, and a lot of tech companies.
All right, so I think we've reached probably the end of discussion we can really glean out of talking about companies. Now to talk about actual legislation, actual law. So assuming we were able to get it where we had a definition of hate speech that a lot of people agreed upon, and we have a committee for stopping hate speech, set up by the government. They look into different hate speech and look at why and certain things, and they just come up with like the legislation that defines hate speech in a acceptable way. So say they come up with that, and say they write it, and then you have the courts can decide what is hate speech, and they can analyze the context, et cetera, if need be. So at that point, the law is being written. What is the punishment for delivering hate speech? Is it a fine? Is it if you have a certain amount of fines, then you have going to jail, or does it only apply to stuff said in person versus online stuff doesn't count, et cetera, et cetera? So what do you guys think would be the legislation for if hate speech were to be made illegal?
I mean, I don't know if we're the best people to ask, first off, because we're not the best demographic for exactly getting hate speech or knowing the consequences. Like, I've never really gotten hate speech directed at me.
In all seriousness, I think like you definitely don't want to restrict it online, like we said, because then it can lead to a bit of a spiral of censorship, and with actual legal repercussions, that can get even more problematic.
Okay, but say it doesn't.
That. Yeah, I'd say online. You're saying?
No, I'm saying say a definition is established for what hate speech is that is agreed upon by most people, that is reasonable,
and it's firm. It won't move.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's firm.
So what Nico's saying, assume
Okay.
you agree with everything the legislation calls hate speech. What do you think the punishment should be?
Well, considering we're banning fascists, that's fair. I think like tickets and stuff are one thing, but I think different punishments should apply for where you spread these things. If it's online, I think it should be kind of limited, because that it's definitely a tough space and there's a lot of deception that can be had. But in public, I think if you're walking into like a synagogue and see Kylan, you should probably go to jail. But if you're in just like a big public space, then like you should receive tickets, and over time, if you're demonstrating like fascist concepts and stuff, you should probably be subject to like fines, and ultimately after a fair amount, like maybe jail.
Right, I'm pretty sure that the hate speech, like if you just walked into a synagogue and synagogue, wouldn't that be a hate crime in and of itself, or is that hate speech?
No,
Yeah, you could count
Because you're
that
not
as a hate
burning
crime.
down the synagogue. Like,
Wouldn't
it's not
that be like a
crime yet.
hate thought crime?
No, it's not a thought crime, but it'd be like more disruption. Like public. It'll be like disruption or like public
Public
nuisance.
disturbances.
Yeah, but that's
disturbing
not really.
peace.
That's like a $50 fine, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the thing. If you're rich enough, like if you're like,
Right.
well, can't think of any rich. Nah,
What do you mean?
There's not
can't
many.
think- what?
I can't think of any. Like, okay, but like, let's say you're rich and you happen to be a neo-Nazi. You keep doing all that stuff. It's nothing more than a slap on the shoulder, right?
Mhm.
I mean, listen, if you're disrupting that kind of thing, you're walking into that. I think like 3 days in jail, maybe.
Maybe, but I don't know. I don't think that's gonna change anybody.
What do you mean that's not? I mean, if
Right.
you keep just
I
throwing
don't
fascists
know.
in jail, eventually they'll just like
You should be given like a court date probably, and they should just like settle it out. It depends on how much you're doing. If you yell at
Yeah.
once, it's probably just like a very hefty fine, maybe. But if you like demonstrate, start walking in, and
Maybe
you
within
know,
radicalization centers, like there's definitely like a few of those, right? Psychologists maybe like de-radicalization.
what?
I feel like send them to de-radicalization programs, like where they can get over their like racist views and become normal.
are there a lot of those out there?
There's
don't think that's really
foundations
much
for
of a
it,
thing.
but I mean, there's foundations for it, but like what, like would we have to build like not really prisons, but like rehab, like hate speech rehab facilities that people are ordered to go to?
We don't have to build
Yeah, people are gonna feel really weird about that because like I wouldn't. I mean, I'm sure I feel that comfortable with like my tax dollars going towards like some Nazis like ability to stay cushy and stuff. Even if they are getting rehabilitated, I still wouldn't feel comfortable with my tax dollars going towards feeding someone like that.
Well, isn't that the same thing as I don't feel comfortable my tax dollars going towards housing prisoners?
Well, yeah,
Well, it
but
depends
private
on
prisons,
how you
so-
feel the
my
rehabilitation
tax dollars
should
aren't
be.
going towards those. Hope I don't think.
Well, what do you mean? Yeah, they're like your tax dollars are going towards feeding rapists.
That's true. Good thing I don't pay taxes.
Tax evasion.
Tax evasion. Let's
Technically,
go.
infants commit tax evasion every
Based.
year they're alive.
Well, it's allowed, so it's
Yeah.
like it's not tax evasion because you're not getting taxed. You have to
Yeah,
be.
but you're still evading taxes, right? Am I right or am I wrong?
Is
You're
the baby
taxes.
evading taxes by saying he's a minor?
Holy shit. You're onto something.
It's a good idea.
FBI, please contact me. I have information about the baby.
Chris
Sure.
Hansen's gonna pull up to your door. Dateline NBC.
Chris Hansen.
Why-
Let's
wait.
go.
Why Chris Hansen? He works for the IRS now.
No.
I guess so. He probably
Why?
does now.
Okay.
I don't know. We're
Well,
making him
the
work
IRS,
there.
please
That's his
contact me.
new
I have a
job.
tip about the baby. He might be committing tax evasion.
Nico, he doesn't
The
work for
IRS and the ATF. 6 letters that can bring any lib-right crying and mad at the same time.
Wait, Nico. Chris Hansen doesn't work for the IRS. He works for the IRA.
Up the RA, as they say.
Yes, up the RA.
All right.
Okay, going back to topic.
Okay, yeah. So Ryan is in favor of like different punishments for different types of crimes. For example, if you let's say for example, let's get a consensus on this. If you were a part of Charlottesville, what should happen to you?
Oh, that is clearly marching and being like that is a public use of hate speech.
If you participated at Charlottesville,
Mhm.
I mean, one person died. It's like one woman. So I mean, it's already looking pretty bad for you. If you participated and you like resisted against the police for a fascist cause, I mean, I think it should probably be some jail time.
Right, but let's say like you were like on the other end, but like you didn't hit the women. Wouldn't you be fine with like free speech, right? Like.
Yeah.
what-
Well, let me clarify. You didn't provably commit any crimes.
Okay.
You were just marching.
Yeah. You were just there
Just
shedding
marching.
blood and soil, and Jews will not place us, and etc. Don't clip that.
Well, now that's recorded.
Nico is
Now they're gonna
Jewish.
clip it.
Okay. All right.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you were there, shouting the slogans, and you couldn't provably have assaulted anybody or committed any actual crime.
So you were there being a neo-Nazi, but you weren't actually hurting anyone.
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
Right.
you're not physically hurting anybody.
That's
Yeah.
that's true.
But you're causing the hurt.
I would argue.
Um,
I mean, I don't want to put too much of my opinions out there because it's mostly for you guys to discuss. But personally,
Right.
I think it
go
is
for it.
hurting somebody to to do that type of thing.
can already imagine this trying to get passed.
Yeah.
Republicans are gonna sit there talking about it's not the government's responsibility to legislate your feelings.
But
Yeah, I mean,
technically,
just moving past that.
Right.
So what do you guys think if you're there and you haven't technically committed a crime, what should be the punishment?
I don't know, man.
All
maybe
right. So I mean, if you're there, I'd say it would probably be like either a really hefty fine or like minimal jail time.
The thing
Well,
is, I
I
like
don't
what
know about jail though, because like
No, okay, not jail if you're like in the back, honestly, because you are horrible. But I think you should probably be like committed to some public service or like
yeah, I was gonna go there. I
a
like what Germany does.
de-radicalization thing if we installed
as
it.
wait,
a-
but would the like I guess fine community service be for espousing the views, or would it be for disturbing the public? What would it be for?
You don't get
Um,
that for disturbing the public. Right,
Disturbing.
Rishab, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say I like the approach Germany does with its Holocaust denial like cases. It just charges them a fine, but it also forces them to research the Holocaust, go to like a bunch of like concentration camp museums, and like truly see what it is they're denying and the gravity of their actions. I think
you
that
think
would
it's
be the
gonna-
best way of kind of addressing a situation in terms of convincing the people who like deny these kind of events or like who espouse such hate speech. Like you have to understand what you're doing, and I think that's the best way to get them to stop.
So
Yeah,
do we
that's a
fly
really
them
good
to
idea.
Germany or something, or what?
That well, I mean, I just remember that was the best example I could think of was from Germany, but I don't think we do anything like that.
I thought
No, I'm
Germany-
saying
I mean-
should we fly the people to Germany to look at the Holocaust camps?
Oh,
We should
no, I think
probably like.
No,
DC
I
has a
don't-
Holocaust camp if you really
Are
want
there
to
like
go there.
museums here?
what?
Or...
No, wait, no, we don't need to go to museums. We have
No,
like
no, not a camp.
we
I
have
should say they have a
survivors,
museum.
right?
They do have a museum in DC.
No, we have
Sorry.
survivors. Like
was
we
gonna
literally
say, I
have
was
survivors
unaware.
around the area, right?
What'd you say, Vikaas?
We have Holocaust survivors in the area, right?
Yeah.
Essentially-
Oh, I wouldn't want to put a
Right,
Holocaust
the-
survivor through meeting with a neo-Nazi.
Wait,
It's
yeah,
not
no,
their
that's
job.
Yeah,
kind of.
that's a terrible idea. I don't think we
No,
should.
And plus, it's not the Holocaust survivor's job to educate like an ignorant bitch like that.
No, but
Oh
they,
my God,
no,
yeah.
but they do that though. Like some of them like actually do. Like with Deshaun Jackson, right? Like I think they actually like, sent him to meet up with the Holocaust survivor to like understand like what's going on.
Yeah.
Well, what went
Well,
on? I guess.
okay. Well, it just means like basically like just
Just educate them. That's the
yeah,
best way to do it.
education program. Okay. So Rishab, you take back your argument saying I don't want my tax dollars towards going towards Nazis.
Yeah, I take it back as long as I know what the tax dollars are being used for.
Okay. All right. So you know we're I guess you guys we're leaning towards some sort of rehabilitation program, some sort of something like that to, you know, if you can get arrested and then you're
And public service. Don't forget that.
huh?
And like service hours, like picking up garbage and
Yeah, you can get arrested and then, you know, some of the punishments may be a fine or public service hours or having to go to de-radicalization rehab thing.
logging.
Yeah. And do you think if you're do you think you should be able to run for public office if you were convicted of hate speech?
I mean, like Marjorie Taylor
Well-
Greene, she runs for office, right? Like
And she's done hate speech like actively. I mean, I think I mean she probably does. But like I think you should probably make sure your record's clean and you should have like an examination to make sure you're not believing in those fascist ideas, and then you could probably run. But if you're still actively believing in that, you should not be allowed to run.
so like
Okay,
let's
so
say like
you-
Nick Fuentes, right? If she wanted to run, what would you guys suggest would be
If who?
would
Wait,
happen?
who?
Like the America First guys
Nick Fuentes.
and Nick Fuentes, yeah.
If Nick Fuentes runs, America's done. I don't know what to do.
No, but he's
Wait,
like,
no, wait.
he's
No,
signing
he's
up
gonna
kids,
win.
so, like,
No, wait, because you said she though, or you just misspoke?
I think I said he, but like yeah, Nick Fuentes. Like let's say like if his people wanted to run, like should we let them run her? What should it be? Because like obviously they're hateful people.
I mean, it's really hard to say because it's completely unorthodox, even for a party this bad, to say you cannot run for political office, because it just goes against the idea that like anyone can have their views represented, good or bad. That's the issue. So I think at this point we're discussing sacrificing, I guess, political liberty for the sake of
specifically the
prosperity.
political liberty of people who do hate speech.
Sorry, what'd you say, Nico?
I said specifically the political liberty of people who do hate speech, because we agreed that this law is
listen,
like a perfect law, So maybe would you guys think if you were convicted of hate speech in the past 2 years, then you can't run for office?
Right, but like
2 years is a good idea. Yeah.
Hold on. Would we actually put hate speech on the record though? Like, would it be like an actual jail charge hate speech?
Yeah, it would go on a record.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know, like employer could see or whatever.
Ooh,
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
that's true.
Right.
The
Like, that's
issue
what-
is all this stuff about government legislation. It can just be undone by another president. Like they could just say, "Oh yeah, I'm not gonna do that whole hate speech authorization. Like I'm not gonna go in and mark people down in the permanent record for hate speech because they're mostly my supporters." At a certain, this is adding at a certain orange man. But
yeah, well, but we're talking more about morality versus like capability.
I'm just saying, if we're going to talk about all this legislation, we also need to talk about whether it's actually going to affect and help people. And if it's that fragile that it can just be erased by like another administration who wants to erase it, then how much good is it actually doing, right?
Well, if it's a congressional amendment, then it can't be erased by the next president.
Fine, maybe it won't be erased, but maybe it won't be as enforced by that person's administration. Like you could just as easily like, a next president could come along, even if the amendment's like, oh yeah, you have to dock down people who get charged with this offense. The administration can come along and be like, yeah, we're not gonna really like administer or enforce that offense.
I mean, you have to follow the law.
Yeah, but as the past 4 years have shown us, you really don't.
Well, I mean, but he did like technically follow the law, and he couldn't tell his entire government to break the law. Like that's not possible. Like he himself personally and his staff could break the law and like get away with it, but like the entire government couldn't.
That's true.
Yeah.
So maybe it won't as it won't be as roadblocked as I think it will be. But okay. I'm just thinking more pessimistically, like what's the worst case scenario that can go wrong? Because let's be real. I think there's many ways.
About like the practicality of all this legislation, obviously it'd be kind of hard to find a good definition that everybody can agree on.
Yeah,
it is possible like that it could change. So that's sort of a problem. And but maybe we would need it to change. Maybe the original definition was not as good as we thought, or somebody's trying to change it for more nefarious purposes. So I mean, practically, I think it's much more morally dubious, and I think that's really up to the viewer. Where just consider the paradox of tolerance and think, is there or is what is the acceptable sacrifice that we have to make to free speech in order to make sure that people don't come into power or aren't able to come into power that would seek to limit free speech in the future. So, what is the acceptable sacrifices that we can make? And that's really up to you, I think, as the viewer, and, support however much you think you want to support. Or should it even just be like no sacrifice is worth it? No sacrifice of free speech is worth it.
I mean, I could see how someone could have either of the two beliefs, because I can see the valid reasons why you'd never want to limit free speech, because we're basically toying with free speech right now, which is a very dangerous thing to toy with. It can go wrong in many different ways in the wrong hands. But I don't know. Maybe we're just the kind of people who think that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the individual, and to each their own, I say.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, not to limit. I'm sorry, not to like basically be reverse McCarthy, but like, if we are kind of like headed on a path directly to fascism with some of the leaders we've had and some of the people who are currently our representatives and some of the stuff that we're beginning to accept and are kind of being ingrained in the Overton window. But like, I think you probably gotta make some limits just on like the most extreme, like dangerous stuff, but you got to make sure you don't let it go out of control. So anybody right of center this time, like actually, just completely gets blacklisted and loses their rights. So you got to make sure it's literally only the fascists and people who have a record of like criminal action, considering criminal action is fascist action.
Yeah. All right. Anybody want to deliver closing remarks? I think we can talk about this on and on, obviously. But I think we've sort of reached the limit of what the viewers would enjoy out of this. So yeah, anybody want to deliver any closing remarks?
Yeah, don't be a Nazi.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Just wanted to add that part in. Yeah, don't do that. It's not cool. Also, Nico, you need to get like a better frame rate, dude. Because
yeah,
like
I'm basically just gonna have to buy a better computer for young voters because honestly, I don't know what else to do.
justify everything by saying it's for the young voters.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a
mom,
tax
I need a
write-off.
PS5 for the young voters.
Yeah, I'm actually live streaming, so yeah, I'm gonna need to. This is a business expense, actually.
Yeah, put it down.
You
It's
gotta
tax.
stop
It's
the hate,
tax
man.
deductible.
As
Okay.
my boy Chet said,
Sorry about my
we gotta
frame rate,
stop the hate.
viewers. I will try and see what I can do about that. But yeah. All right. Thank you, young voters, for watching. I hope you enjoyed this discussion. Just a little bit more of a chilled out, not really debate, but just more of a talking with me, the moderator, just delivering a couple questions to see where that took us. So hopefully you enjoyed. All of the links for all of our pundits will be in the description. Our Discord will be in the description. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure to like our videos. Make sure to watch the playlist with all of our debates. Make sure to check out our website. Make sure to check out our Instagram. Solve world hunger and
Stop the hate.
Stop the hate.
Just save Ukraine.
This white
Save
boy
Ukraine.
summer, we gotta stop the hate.
Yeah.
And praise Chet Hanks.
Yes. Enjoy your white boy summer. Stop the hate.
See y'all.
Yeah.
See you.